Hello from Kingfisher, Oklahoma. I'm excited to get into the book of Judges. This book has some great classic stories in there, maybe some stories you've never heard of, but I'm very excited. It's going to be a great book to cover this week. We're going to look at 5 different things from Judges. One thing is you have to remember that Joshua has passed away. And in this first chapter, we're kind of getting a summary of what's happened leading into the book, and then in chapter 2 we kind of get a summary of what the book's going to be about. So these first 2 chapters are really an introduction. We're not going to get into any specifics in the first 2 chapters, but then we'll jump into it. It's kind of like Genesis. We get the overall creation story in the first chapter, but then we jump into the specifics of Adam and Eve and what happens to them after that. It almost sounds like we're getting things out of order in the story, but really it's a summary and then the specifics. That's what we've got again. So we're excited about that. We find out some of the people did not get kicked all the way out of the land. So Judah and Simeon are going to go kick some people out. Number 2, again, some of this is review. Othniel, who is related to Caleb, goes in and takes a land. He's Caleb's nephew, and he takes the land that Caleb asked for. So Caleb gives Othniel Caleb's daughter as a wife, and Caleb himself goes in and kills some giants that are in there. Pretty awesome there. Number 3, after Caleb dies, after Joshua dies, after all the elders that were all that age die, that generation that wandered the desert, after they die off, now we're going to start to find trouble. Israel is going to run into trouble because of the fact that they start to serve other gods than Yahweh. The King James Version actually uses the word Baalim, B-A-A-L-I-M, which could just be translated many gods. Remember, the ending I-M for a Hebrew word, im, is multiple, so multiple Baals, kind of like seraph or seraphim is multiple seraphs, and so that's true for Baal here. Nothing makes God so upset in the Old Testament as his people serving a different God, and we're gonna see it. It's pretty crazy what's gonna happen. So God delivered Israel, number 4, put them in the promised land. Now they don't serve God, and now he's going to deliver them into the hands of another nation, and they're going to suffer, and it's all because they serve someone else. So moral of the story is serve God. Number 5, and what we'll see over and over in each of these stories, to some extent, some we can see the full extent, some we don't quite, we just get like a summary, but it's always true in these stories, is what we'll call the cycle of Judges that Gabe pointed out. Thank you, Gabe, for getting us ready for this. The cycle of the Judges looks something like this. They've come in, they've served God, but now they turn to false gods. Because they turn to false gods, God sends another nation to conquer them, and they will treat them badly, sometimes as servants or sometimes as marauding bands, but they always get treated unwell. Then the nation goes, well, this is ridiculous. Let's turn back to God for help. And so they cry out to God for help. God hears and raises up a judge, a leader in Israel who rises up, gets the people together. They go back out and they conquer the nation that's been giving them trouble. Then they serve God, usually only for the lifetime of the judge. But when that judge passes away, then they're back into the cycle, serving another God. And it's this loop of difficulty that they keep running into of their own design. And to be fair, it's really the cycle of our life is the same. When we sin, we fall into sin, we get the consequences of sin. Very often we cry out to God, help us, get us out of this mess that we've made. He does, we're back in it, but then when we don't serve God and we fall into that sin pattern, it's this cycle again. Just shows us that we need the permanent answer to our sin, and that is Jesus Christ. And he comes in the New Testament. It's going to be a while till we get there, but we're pretty excited. Love these stories. Let's jump into it. Judges chapter 1. Now the death of Joshua, after the death of Joshua, it came to pass that the children of Israel asked the Lord, saying, who shall go up against the Canaanites first and fight against them? The Lord said, Judah shall go up. Behold, I have delivered the land into his hand. And Judah said unto Simeon his brother, come up with me into my lot, that we may fight against the Canaanites. And I likewise shall go with thee to thy lot. So Simeon went up with him, and Judah went up, and the Lord delivered the Canaanites and the Perizzites into their hand, and they slew of them in Bezek 10,000 men. And they fought against Adoni-Bezek in Bezek, and they fought against him, and they slew the Canaanites and the Perizzites. But Adoni-Bezek fled, and they pursued after him, and caught him, cut off his thumbs and his great toes. And Adoni-Bezek said, 70 kings, having their thumbs and their great toes cut off, gathered for meat under my table. As I have done, so the Lord hath requited me. And they brought him to Jerusalem, and he died there. So that's justice there. Adoni-Bezek had conquered 70 kings, thumbs and toes chopped off, and they served him. Now he's serving. Shows that God is the God. Now the children of Judah had fought against Jerusalem, and had taken it, and smitten it with the edge of the sword, and would set the city on fire. And afterward the children of Judah went to fight against the Canaanites, and dwelt in the mountain, and in the south, in the valley. And Judah went against the Canaanites that dwelt in Hebron. Now the name of Hebron before was Kirjath Arba, and they slew Sheshai, and Ahiman, and Talmai. And from thence he went up against the inhabitants of Debir. The name of Debir before was Kirjath Sepher. And Caleb said, he that smiteth Kirjath Sepher, and taketh it, to him I will give Achsah, my daughter, to wife. And Othniel, the son of Kenaz, Caleb's younger brother, took it, and he gave him Achsah, his daughter, to wife. And it came to pass that she came to him, that she moved him to ask her father a field. And she lighted from off her ass, and said, Caleb said unto her, what wilt thou? And she said, give me a blessing, that thou hast given me the south land, also give me springs of water. And Caleb gave her upper springs and the nether springs. And the children of the Kenite, Moses his father-in-law, went up out of the city of palm trees with the children of Judah into the wilderness of Judah, which lieth in the south of Arad. And they went and dwelt among the people. And Judah went with Simeon his brother, and they slew the Canaanites that inhabited Zepheth, and utterly destroyed it. And the city was called Hormah. Also Judah took Gaza with the coast thereof, and Askelon the coast thereof, and Ekron the coast thereof. And the Lord was with Judah, and he drave out the inhabitants of the mountain, but could not drive out the inhabitants of the valley, because they had chariots of iron. And they gave Hebron unto Caleb, as Moses said, and he expelled thence the 3 sons of Anak. And the children of Benjamin did not drive out the Jebusites that inhabited Jerusalem, but the Jebusites dwell with the children of Benjamin in Jerusalem to this day. And the house of Joseph they also went up to Bethel. The Lord was with them. And the house of Joseph went to descry Bethel. And the name of the city before was Luz. And the spies saw a man come forth out of the city, and said unto him, show us, we pray thee, the entrance to the city, and we will show thee mercy. And he showed them the entrance of the city. They smote the city with the edge of the sword, but they let the man go, and all his family. And the man went to the land of the Hittites, and built a city, and called the name thereof Luz, which is the name thereof this day. Neither did Manasseh drive out the inhabitants of Beth Shean and her towns, nor Tanakh and her towns, nor the inhabitants of Dor and her towns, nor the inhabitants of Ibleam and her towns, nor the inhabitants of Megiddo and her towns. But the Canaanites would dwell in that land. And it came to pass, when Israel was strong, that they put the Canaanites to tribute, and did not utterly drive them out. See, this is part of the problem, is that they're going to get in, they leave some people around, and those people will become a snare against the Israelites. Neither did Ephraim drive out the Canaanites that dwell in Gezer, but the Canaanites dwelt in Gezer among them. Neither did Zebulun drive out the inhabitants of Kitron, nor the inhabitants of Nahalal, but the Canaanites dwelt among them, and became tributaries. Neither did Asher drive out the inhabitants of Akko, nor the inhabitants of Zidon, nor Alab, nor Aksib, nor Helba, nor Aphik, nor Rehob. But the Asherites dwell among the Canaanites, the inhabitants of the land, for they did not drive them out. Neither did Naphtali drive out the inhabitants of Beth Shemesh, nor the inhabitants of Beth Anath, but he dwelt among the Canaanites and the inhabitants of the land. Nevertheless, the inhabitants of Beth Shemesh and Beth Anath became tributaries unto them. And the Amorites forced the children of Dan into the mountain, for they would not suffer them to come down to the valley. But the Amorites that dwell in the mount, Heres and Aijalon and Shalabim, yet the hand of the house of Joseph prevailed, so they became tributaries. And the coast of the Amorites was going from Akrabim, from the rock, and upward. Chapter 2. And the angel of the Lord came from Gilgal to Bochum and said, I have made you go up out of Egypt, and have brought you to the land which I swear to your fathers. And I said, I will never break my covenant with you, and ye shall make no league with the inhabitants of this land. Ye shall throw down their altars. But you have not obeyed my voice. Why have you done this? Whereof I also said, I will not drive them out from before you, but they shall be as thorns in your sides, and their gods will be a snare to you. It came to pass, when the angel of the Lord spake these words unto all the children, that they lift up their voice and wept. And they called the name of that place Bochim, which means weepers. And they sacrificed there unto the Lord. And when Joshua had let the people go, and the children of Israel went every man unto his inheritance to possess the land, that the people served the Lord all the days of Joshua, and all the days of the elders that outlived Joshua, who had seen all the great works of the Lord that he did for Israel. Joshua the son of Nun, the servant of the Lord, died being 110 years old. And they buried him in the border of his inheritance in Timnath-Heres, in the mount of Ephraim, the north side of the hill of Gash. And all the generation were gathered to their fathers, and there arose another generation after them, which knew not the Lord, nor yet the works he had done for Israel. So you see, this is one reason why we've got to reach out and teach our kids about God. Because that whole generation of Joshua was going great. They were doing the right thing, mostly, and they were following God. But now a whole generation rises that has no connection of God, doesn't care, and that's when the trouble starts. Can you imagine a whole generation of Americans that did not rise up to serve God? We kind of see a good deal of people doing it, but what if this generation just gets worse? Wow, America will be in a tough spot. The children of Israel did evil in the sight of the Lord and served Baalim. Remember, that's many gods. And they forsook the Lord, the God of their fathers, which brought them out of the land of Egypt, and followed other gods, of the gods of the people that were around them, and bowed themselves unto them, and provoked the Lord to anger. And they forsook the Lord, and served Baal and Ashtaroth, and the anger of the Lord was hot against Israel, and he delivered them into the hands of spoilers that spoiled them, and sold them into the hands of their enemies round about, so they could no longer stand before their enemies. Whithersoever they went, the hand of the Lord was against them for evil, as the Lord said unto them, and as the Lord had sworn to them, and they were greatly distressed. Nevertheless, the Lord raised up judges, which delivered them out of the hand of those who spoiled them. See, this is the cycle. They started serving the other gods. They get sold into spoilers, or the hands of the enemies. Now he's raising up the judge. And yet they would not hearken unto their judges, because they went whoring after other gods, and bowed themselves unto them. They turned quickly out of the way their fathers had walked in, obeying the commandments of the Lord. But they did not so. And when the Lord raised them up judges, and the Lord was with the judge, and delivered them out of the hand of their enemies all the days of the judge, for it repented the Lord because of their groanings, by reason of them that oppressed them and vexed them. And it came to pass, when the judge was dead, that they returned and corrupted themselves more than their fathers in following other gods and serving them, and bowed down unto them. They ceased not from their own doings, nor from their stubborn way. And the anger of the Lord was hot against Israel. And he said, because that this people hath transgressed my covenant, which I commanded their fathers, and have not hearkened unto my voice, I also will not henceforth drive out any from before them of the nations which Joshua left when he died, that through them I may prove Israel whether they will keep the way of the Lord to walk therein, as their fathers did keep it, or not. Therefore the Lord left those nations without driving them out hastily, neither delivered he them into the hand of Joshua. So God's hand is on it. We're going to see this cycle of Judges, some pretty interesting stories, but the moral is You gotta stay with God. Catch you next time.